नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। नितिल विश्व विष्णुपार अष्टतर शतस्मर शिल भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विश्व विष्णुपार अष्टतर शतस्मर शिल भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल विश्व विष्णुपार अष्टतर शतस्मर शिल भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विश्व विष्णुपार अष्टतर शतस्मर शिल भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट महाभागवत शिल गोक्षर बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट शिल सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नितिल प्रविष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम शिल जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूप गौरी गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल पतिदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गोपाल शारद वृंद की जय। नाम अक्षय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मनु देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योग माया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद्-भागवतम की जय। श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणेति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरतिशे नमः। गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तम् अनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदन्तस्तो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतम्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवद्गीतोत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना। इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमां चरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षाय क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितरङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि तं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। भज श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। दंडवत प्रणाम। हरि बोल गंगा दीदी, रसेश्वरी माता जी, प्रजुम्न प्रभु, रूप मंजरी दीदी, दंडवत प्रणाम to all of you. So yesterday my internet wasn't working, and the internet guy said that he's going to come this morning. But right now it seems to be working. So anyhow, let me know if it stops working. Maharaj Pṛthu becomes angry at the earth. So this is just a recap. I'm just gonna read this one page here. I'm not gonna get more details. But so the hungry citizens, they approach Pṛthu Maharaj and submit their petition that the earth hasn't been giving any grains to them or anything, so they're all starving. So then Pṛthu contemplates and decides to attack the earth. Then the earth took a form of a cow and ran in fear. She took the form of a cow because she knew that Pṛthu Maharaj wouldn't want to kill a cow. So then angry Pṛthu chases the earth everywhere, all throughout the universe. Finally, she gives up, she surrenders, and finally she just turns to him. She knows that she can't escape. And she says, "You are a knower of dharma and a shelter of the surrendered. You are merciful. I am a poor sinless woman who protects all from drowning in the Garbhodak ocean waters. Despite accepting your share," and then Pṛthu says, "Despite accepting your share, you didn't reciprocate. I will cut you to pieces and feed you to my citizens." A king may kill a cruel person. You are a false, proud, and insane cow. Then the earth offers prayers to pacify Pṛthu Maharaj. She said, "I am a part and parcel of you. Being the creator, how can you kill me? Now you are the maintainer, you're not the destroyer. You have inconceivable plans and contrary energies. I am not nourishing your progeny to rectify, but I am not nourishing your progeny. Sorry, why did I say progeny? I'm so tired. Progeny to rectify them of evil ways. I'm rectifying them of their evil ways. If you kill me, charitable persons will lose fame." She says, "I'm bewildered by your activities. After all, I am also a creation of one of your energies, consisting of the three modes. I offer my respects to you, the bringer of fame to those celebrated for charity. If you are not merciful to me, then the fame of charitable persons will be lost." Okay, now, Pṛthu Maharaj milks the earth planet. We read up to verse 12. Okay, so I'm just going to read from here now. Pṛthu was still not pacified by the prayers of the earth, and his lips trembled in great anger. The frightened earth made up her mind and spoke. "Please control your anger and hear patiently what I say. I may be very poor, but a learned man takes the essence of knowledge from all places like a bumblebee. The great sages have prescribed proper methods by which people can attain prosperity in this life and the next. By faithfully following such methods, even an inexperienced person can easily attain his desired results. But if a foolish person ignores such methods and acts independently, he will remain repeatedly unsuccessful." The reasons for the earth's hiding the seeds meant for sacrifice. All of the seeds, herbs, grains are being used by non-devotees devoid of spiritual activities. I am not being properly protected and respected by the kings like you. And then there's two notes here. Note A. With vain in mind, the earth also scolds his son, Pṛthu. She was apalit, unprotected because no sacrifices were being performed, and anadrit, not respected because of the spread of irreligion. Note B. When Vain died, the place became filled with thieves. She devoured all the herbs and grains so that sacrifices may be started up by Pṛthu in the future. Ah, interesting. All the grain seeds have been stored within me for a long time. Therefore, you should immediately retrieve them by the standard method, prescribed by the acharyas and shastras, and which I will explain to you. And there's a note here. The word kshina in this verse has been explained by Srila Prabhupada as deterioration, and by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as subtle state. All right. Standard method. If you desire to relieve the living entities with sufficient food, you should make arrangements for 1, a calf suitable for this purpose, 2, a pot, and 3, a milkman. Being very affectionate towards the calf, I will produce the desired milk suitable for the living entities. Also, make me level so that the rainwater coming by Indra's grace will remain on the surface even after the rainy season has passed. This will keep the earth always moist. This will be auspicious for all kinds of food production. Alright, so that's where we read up to yesterday. And see, there's the milkman, the calf, the pot, the milk. Pṛthu, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the hands, herbs and grains, sages, Brihaspati, census, Vedic hymns. See, we're going to go through this whole list. Alright. Dandavat Pranam Gargaraji. Where is it? Okay. Iti priyam hitam vakyam bhuva adaya bhupati vatsam kritva manum panav aduhat sakalo sadi. After hearing the auspicious and pleasing words of planet Earth, the king accepted them. He then transformed Swayambhuva Manu into a calf and milked all the herbs and grains from the earth in the form of a cow, keeping them in his cupped hands. Tata parecha sarvatra saramadhatate buddha tatonye chayata kamam duduhu Pṛthu bhavitam. Others who were as intelligent as King Pṛthu also took the essence out of the earthly planet. Indeed, everyone took this opportunity to follow in the footsteps of King Pṛthu and get whatever he desired from the planet Earth. Purport. The planet Earth is also called Vasundhara. The word Vasu means wealth, and Dhara means one who holds. All creatures within the earth fulfill the necessities required for human beings, and all living entities can be taken out of the earth by the proper means. As suggested by the planet Earth. Okay. As suggested by the planet Earth and accepted and initiated by King Pṛthu, whatever is taken from the earth, either from the mines, from the surface of the globe, or from the atmosphere, should always be considered the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and should be used for yajna, Lord Vishnu. As soon as the process of yajna is stopped, the earth will withhold all productions, vegetables, trees, plants, fruits, flowers, and other agricultural products and minerals. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, the process of yajna was instituted from the beginning of creation. By the regular performance of yajna, the equal distribution of wealth, and the restriction of sense gratification, the entire world will be made peaceful and prosperous. As already mentioned, in this age of Kali, the simple performance of Sankirtan Yajna, the holding of festivals as initiated by the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, should be introduced in every town and village. Intelligent men should encourage the performance of Sankirtan Yajna by their personal behavior. This means that they should follow the process of austerity by restraining themselves from illicit sex life, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. If the intelligent men or the Brahmins of society would follow the rules and regulations, certainly the entire face of this present world, which is in such chaotic condition, would change, and the people would become happy and prosperous. Rishayarduduhur devim indriyeshvata sattama vatsam brihaspatim kritva payaschando mayam suchi. All the great sages transformed Brihaspati into a calf, and making the senses into a pot, They milked all kinds of Vedic knowledge to purify words, mind, and hearing. Purport. Brihaspati is the priest of the heavenly planets. Vedic knowledge was received in logical order by the great sages through Brihaspati for the benefit of human society, not only on this planet, but throughout the universes. In other words, Vedic knowledge is considered one of the necessities for human society. If human society remains satisfied simply by taking grains from the planet Earth, as well as other necessities for maintaining the body, society will not be sufficiently prosperous. Humanity must have food for the mind and ear, as well as for the purpose of vibration. As far as transcendental vibrations are concerned, the essence of all Vedic knowledge is the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In Kali Yuga, if this Vedic Maha Mantra is chanted regularly and heard regularly by the devotional process of Shravanam Kirtana, it will purify all societies, and thus humanity will be happy both materially and spiritually. Kritva vatsam suragana indram somam aduduham hiranmayena patrena viryam ojo palampaya. All the demigods made Indra, the king of heaven, into a calf, and from the earth they milked the beverage soma, which is nectar. Thus they became very powerful in mental speculation and bodily and sensual strength. Purport. In this verse, soma means nectar. In this verse, soma means nectar. Soma is a kind of beverage made in the heavenly planets from the moon to the kingdoms of the demigods in the various higher planetary systems. By drinking this soma beverage, the demigods become more powerful mentally and increase their sensual power and bodily strength. The words Hiranmayena Patrena indicate that this soma beverage is not an ordinary intoxicating liquor. The demigods would not touch any kind of liquor. Nor is soma a kind of drug. It is a different kind of beverage available in the heavenly planets. Soma is far different from the liquors made for demoniac people, as explained in the next verse. Daiteya danava vatsam praladam asurarshabam vedhaya duhan kshiram ayapatre surasavam. The sons of Diti and the demons transformed Prahlad Maharaj, who was born in an Asura family, into a calf, and they extracted various kinds of liquor and beer, which they put into a pot made of iron. Purport. The demons also have their own types of beverages in the forms of liquors and beers, just as the demigods use somaras for their drinking purposes. The demons born of Diti take great pleasure in drinking wine and beer. Even today, people of demoniac nature are very much addicted to liquor and beer. The name of Prahlad Maharaj is very significant in this connection. Because Prahlad Maharaj was born in a family of demons, as the son of Hiranyakashipu, by his mercy, the demons were and still are able to have their drinks in the form of wine and beer. The word aya, iron, is very insignificant. Whereas the nectarian soma was put into a golden pot, the liquors and beers were put into an iron pot. Because the liquor and beer are inferior, they are placed in an iron pot, and because somaras is superior, it is placed in a golden pot. Gandharvapsarasaro dukshan patre parma maye paya vatsam vishvavasum kritva gandharvam madhusopagam. The inhabitants of Gandharva Loka and Apsara Loka made Vishvavasu into a calf, and they drew the milk into a lotus flower pot. The milk took the shape of sweet musical art and beauty. Vatsena pitaror Pitaroryamna Kavyam Kshiram Adukshata Amapatre Mahabhaga Shraddhaya Shraddhas Devata. The fortunate inhabitants of Pitriloka, who preside over the funeral ceremonies, made Aryama into a calf. With great faith, they milked kavya, food offered to the ancestors, into an unbaked earthen pot. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 9.25, it is said, Pitrinyanti Pitri Vrata. Those who are interested in family welfare are called Pitri Vrata. There is a planet called Pitriloka, and the predominating deity of that planet is called Aryama. He is somewhat of a demigod, and by satisfying him, one can help ghostly family members develop a gross body. Those who are very sinful and attached to their family, house, village, or country do not receive a gross body made of material elements, but remain in a subtle body composed of mind, ego, and intelligence. Those who live in such subtle bodies are called ghosts. This ghostly position is very painful because a ghost has intelligence, mind, and ego, and wants to enjoy material life. But because he doesn't have a gross material body, he can only create disturbances for want of material satisfaction. It is the duty of family members, especially the son, to offer oblations to the demigod Aryama or to Lord Vishnu. From time immemorial in India, the son of a dead man goes to Gaya and, at a Vishnu temple there, offers oblations for the benefit of his ghostly father. It is not that everyone's father becomes a ghost, but the oblations of Pinda are offered to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu so that if a family member happens to become a ghost, he'll be favored with a gross body. However, if one is habituated to taking the prasad of Lord Vishnu, there's no chance of his becoming a ghost or anything lower than a human being. In Vedic civilization, there's a performance called Shraddha, by which food is offered with faith and devotion. If one offers oblations with faith and devotion, either to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu or to his representative in Pitriloka Aryama, one's forefathers will attain material bodies to enjoy whatever material enjoyment is due them. In other words, they do not have to become ghosts. Prakalpavatsam kapilam siddha sankalpanaya mayim siddhim nabhasi vidyang cha yecha vidyadharadaya. After this, the inhabitants of Siddhaloka, as well as the inhabitants of Vidyadharaloka, transformed the great Kapila into a calf, and making the whole sky into a pot, they milked out specific yogic mystic powers, beginning with anima. Indeed, the inhabitants of Vidyadharaloka acquired the art of flying in the sky. Purport. The inhabitants of both Siddhaloka and Vidyadharaloka are naturally endowed with mystic yogic powers by which they not only can fly in outer space without a vehicle, but can also fly from one planet to another simply by exerting their will. Just as fish can swim within water, the residents of Vidyadharaloka can swim in the ocean of air. As far as the inhabitants of Siddhaloka are concerned, they are endowed with all mystic powers. The yogis in this planet practice the eightfold yogic mysticism, namely Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi. By regularly performing the yogic processes one after another, the yogis attain various perfections. They can become smaller than the smallest, heavier than the heaviest, etc. They can even manufacture a planet, get whatever they like, and control whatever man they want. All the residents of Siddhaloka are naturally endowed with these mystic yogic powers. It is certainly a very wonderful thing if we can see a person on this planet flying into the sky without a vehicle. But in Vidyadharaloka, such flying is as commonplace as a bird's flying in the sky. Similarly, in Siddhaloka, all the inhabitants are great yogis, perfect in mystic powers. The name of Kapila Muni is significant in this verse, because he was the expounder of the Sankhya philosophical system, and his father, Kardama Muni, was a great yogi and mystic. Indeed, Kardama Muni prepared a great airplane, which was as large as a small town, and had various gardens, palatial buildings, servants and maidservants. With all this paraphernalia, Kapila Dev's mother Devahuti and his father Kardama Muni traveled all over the universes and visited different planets. Anyecha maino mayam antardhana bhutatmanam mayam prakalpya vatsamte duduhur dharanamayim. Others also, the inhabitants of the planets known as Kim Purush Lok, made the demon Maya into a calf, and they milked out mystic powers by which one can disappear immediately from another's vision and appear again in a different form. Purport: It is said that the inhabitants of Kim Purushaloka can perform many wonderful mystic demonstrations. In other words, they can exhibit as many wonderful things as one can imagine. The inhabitants of this planet can do whatever they like, or whatever they imagine. Such powers are also mystic powers. The possession of such mystic power is called Ishita. The demons generally learn such mystic powers by the practice of yoga. In the Dashamaskanda canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, there is a vivid description of how the demons appear before Krishna in various wonderful forms. For instance, Bakasura appeared before Krishna and his cowherd boyfriends as a gigantic crane. While present on this planet, Lord Krishna had to fight with many demons who could exhibit the many wonderful mystic powers of King Purushaloka. Although the inhabitants of King Purushaloka are naturally endowed with such powers, one can attain these powers on this planet by performing different yogic practices. Yaksha rakshansi bhutane pishacha pishitashana bhutesha vatsaduduhu kapale kshatrajasavam. Then the yakshas, rakshasas, ghosts, and witches, who are habituated to eating flesh, transformed Lord Shiva's incarnation Rudra, Bhutanath, into a calf, and milked out beverages made of blood, and put him in a pot made of skulls. Yikes. Purport: There are some types of living entities in the form of human beings whose living conditions and eatables are most abominable. Generally, they eat flesh and fermented blood, which is mentioned in this verse as kshatrajasavam. The leaders of such degraded men are known as yakshas, rakshasas, bhutas, and pishachas, and they are all in the mode of ignorance. They have been placed under the control of Rudra. Rudra is the incarnation of Lord Shiva and is in charge of the mode of ignorance in material nature. Another name of Lord Shiva is Bhutanath, meaning the master of ghosts. Rudra was born from between Brahma's eyes when Brahma was very angry at the four Kumaras. Tatahaya dandashuka sarpanagascha takshanam vidayam vatsantutur pilapatre vishampaya. Thereafter, cobras and snakes without hoods, large snakes, scorpions, and many other poisonous animals took poison out of the planet Earth as their milk, and kept this poison in snake holes. They made a calf out of takshak. Purports: Within this material world, there are various types of living entities, and the various types of reptiles and scorpions mentioned in this verse are also provided with their sustenance by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The point is that everyone is taking his eatables from the planet Earth. According to one's association with the material qualities, one develops a certain type of character. Payapanam bhujanganam. If one feeds a serpent milk, the snake will simply increase its venom. However, if one supplies milk to a talented sage or saint, the sage will develop finer brain tissues by which he can contemplate higher spiritual life. Thus the Lord is supplying everyone food, but according to the living entity's association with the modes of material nature, the living entity develops his specific character. Vashavo yavasham kshiram vatsam kritva chago vrisham aranya patricha dukshan vrigendrena chatangstrina kravyada pranina kravyam duduhu sves kalevare suparna vatsaviha charam cha charameva cha. The four-legged animals, like the cows, made a calf out of the bull, who carries Lord Shiva, and made a milking pot out of the forest. Thus they got fresh green grasses to eat. It's funny how they had to turn a bull into a calf. I guess, anyways. Ferocious animals, like tigers, transformed a lion into a calf, and thus they are able to get flesh for milk. The birds made a calf out of Garuda and took milk from the planet Earth in the form of moving insects and non-moving plants and grasses. Purport. There are many carnivorous birds descended from Garuda, the winged carrier of Lord Vishnu. Indeed, there is a particular type of bird that is very fond of eating monkeys. Whoa. Eagles are fond of eating goats. And of course, many birds eat only fruits and berries, like parrots. Therefore, the words charam, referring to moving animals, and acharam, referring to grasses, fruits, and vegetables, are mentioned in this verse. Vatavatsa vanaspataya prita grasa mayampaya girayo himavarvatsa Nana Dhatun Swadhasanushu. The trees made a calf out of the banyan tree, and thus they derived milk in the form of many delicious juices. The mountains transformed the Himalayas into a calf, and they milked a variety of minerals into a pot made of the peaks of the hills. The peaks of hills. Okay. Sarasvamukhyavasena Sese Patre Pratakpaya Sarvakama Dugam Prithvim Duduhu Pṛthu Bhavitam. The planet Earth supplied everyone his respective food. During the time of King Pṛthu, the earth was fully under the control of the king. Thus, all the inhabitants of the earth could get their food supply by creating various types of calves and putting their particular types of milk in various pots. Purport. This is evidence that the Lord supplies food to everyone. As confirmed in the Vedas, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kaman. Although the Lord is one, he is supplying all necessities to everyone through the medium of the planet Earth. There are different varieties of living entities on different planets, and they all derive their eatables from their planets in different forms. On the basis of these descriptions, how can one assume that there is no living entity on the moon? Every moon is earthly, being composed of the 5 elements. Every planet produces different types of food according to the needs of its residents. According to the Vedic Shastras, it is not true that the moon does not produce food or that no living entity is living there. Evam pritva daya prithvim anada svanamatmana doha vatsadi bhedena shira bedum kurudvaha. My dear Vidura, the chief of Kurus, chief of the Kurus. In this way, King Pṛthu and all the others who subsist on food created by different types of calves and milked out their respective eatables. Thus they received their various foodstuffs, which are symbolized as milk. Tato mahipati prita sarva kama dugam Pṛthu duhi tritve chakare mam premna duhi tirvatsala. Thereafter, King Pṛthu was very satisfied with the planet Earth, for she sufficiently supplied all food to various living entities. Thus he developed an affection for the planet Earth, just as if she were his own daughter. Churnayam sadanushkotya girikutani rajarat bhumandalam idam vainya prayaschakre samam vibhu. After this, the king of all kings, Maharaj Pṛthu, leveled all rough places on the surface of the globe by breaking up the hills with the strength of his bow. By his grace, the surface of the globe almost became flat. Purport. Generally, the mountains and hilly portions of the earth are made flat by the striking of thunderbolts. Generally, this is the business of King Indra of the heavenly planets. But King Pṛthu, an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, did not wait for King Indra to break up the hills and mountains, but did so himself by using his strong bow. Atasmin Bhagavan Vainya Prajanam Vrittida Pita Nivasan Kalpayam Chakre Tatra Tatra Yatarhata. To all the citizens of the state, King Pṛthu was as good as a father. Thus he was visibly engaged in giving them proper subsistence and proper employment for subsistence. After leveling the surface of the globe, he earmarked different places for residential quarters, inasmuch as they were desirable. What does earmarked mean? I remember coming across this word before. Designated. Okay, designated for a particular purpose. Set aside. Gramampura patanani durgani vividhani cha koshan rajana shibiran akaran ketakarvatan. In this way, the king founded many types of villages, settlements, and towns, and built forts, residences for cowherdsmen, stables for the animals, and places for the royal camps, mining places, agricultural towns, and mountain villages. Prakritori hanai vaisha pura gramadi kalpana yatha sukam vasantisma tatra tatra kuto bhaya. Before the reign of King Pṛthu, there was no planned arrangement for different cities, villages, pasturing grounds, etc. Everything was scattered, and everyone constructed his residential quarters according to his own convenience. However, since King Pṛthu's plans were made for towns and villages. Purport. From this statement, it appears that town and city planning is not new, but has been coming down since the time of King Pṛthu. In India, we can see regular planning methods evident in very old cities. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, there are many descriptions of such ancient cities. Even 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna's capital, Dwarka, was well planned, and similar other cities, Mathura and Hastinapur, now New Delhi, were also well planned. Thus, the beginning of planning cities and towns is not a modern innovation, but was existing in bygone ages. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 18th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Pṛthu Maharaj Milks the Earth Planet. Let me just see the comments here. I think this is before Mandara Mountain. Actually, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I think this is before though. Yeah, I don't think Kurma came yet. He comes in a different yuga. I don't know though. That's not an authoritative answer. But we're still pretty early in the creation, isn't it? King Pṛthu is only a few generations down from Swayambhuva. But yeah, I can't tell you. Okay, we're on chapter 19 now. King Pṛthu's 100 horse sacrifices, chapter 19. We're going to just read the first 9 verses. Maitreya uvacha atadikshata rajatu Aśvamedha-yajñas sa brahmavarte manokshetre yatra prachi saraswati. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, King Pṛthu initiated the performance of 100 horse sacrifices at the spot where the river Saraswati flows towards the east. This piece of land is known as Brahmavarta, and it was controlled by Śvayambhuva. Tadabi preta bhagavan karmati shayamatmana shatakratur nama mrishe Pṛthuryagya mahotsavam. When the most powerful Indra, the king of heaven, saw this, he considered the fact that King Pṛthu was going to exceed him in fruitive activities. Thus, Indra could not tolerate the great sacrificial ceremonies performed by King Pṛthu. Purport. In the material world, everyone who comes to enjoy himself or lord it over material nature is envious of others. This envy is also found in the personality of the King of Heaven, Indra. As evident from the revealed scriptures, Indra was several times envious. He was several times envious of many persons. He was especially envious of great fruitive activities and the execution of yoga practices or siddhis. Indeed, he could not tolerate them, and he desired to break them up. He was envious due to fear that those who performed great sacrifices for the execution of mystic yoga might occupy his seat. Since no one in this material world can tolerate another's advancement, everyone in the material world is called matsar, envious. In the beginning of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is therefore said that Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is meant for those who are completely near matsar, non-envious. In other words, one who is not free from the contamination of envy cannot advance in Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, however, if someone excels another person, the devotee who is excelled thinks how fortunate the other person is to be advancing in the devotional service. Such non-envy is typical of Vaikuntha. However, when one is envious of his competitor, that is material. The demigods posted in the material world are not exempt from envy. Yatra yagyapati shakshar bhagavan harish ishvara anvabhuyat sarvatma loka sarva loka guru prabhu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is present in everyone's heart as the Supersoul, and he is the proprietor of all planets and the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices. He was personally present at the sacrifices made by King Pṛthu. Purport. In this verse, the word Kshakshat is significant. Pṛthu Maharaj was a Shaktavesh avatar, and he was a Shaktavesh avatar of Lord Vishnu. Actually, Pṛthu Maharaj was a living entity, but he acquired specific powers from Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu, however, is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus belongs to the category of Vishnu Tattva. Maharaj Pṛthu belongs to the Jiva Tattva. The Vishnu Tattva indicates God, whereas the Jiva Tattva indicates the part and parcel of God. When God's part and parcel is especially empowered, he is called a Shaktavesh avatar. The Lord Vishnu is herein described as Harir Ishvara. The Lord is so kind that he takes all the miserable conditions away from his devotees. Consequently, he is called Hari. He is described as Ishvar because he can do whatever he likes. He is the supreme controller. The supreme Ishvar Purushottam is Lord Krishna. He exhibits his powers as Ishvar, or the supreme controller, when he assures his devotee in Bhagavad Gita, 1866. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. He can immediately make his devotee immune from all the reactions caused by sinful life if the devotee simply surrenders unto him. He is described herein as Sarvatma, meaning that he is present in everyone's heart as the Supersoul, and as such, he is a supreme teacher of everyone. If we are fortunate enough to take the lessons given by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, our lives immediately become successful. No one can give better instructions to human society than Lord Krishna. Anvito Brahma Sarvabhyam Lokapalai Sahanugai Upagiya Mano Gandharvar Muni Vishchapsaro Ganai. When Lord Vishnu appeared in the sacrificial arena, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all the chief predominating personalities of every planet, as well as their followers, came with him. When he appeared on the scene, the residents of Gandharva Loka, the great sages, and the residents of Apsara Loka all praised him. Siddha Vidyadhara Daitya Danava Guyakadaya Sunanda Nanda Pramukha Parshada Pravara Hare. The Lord was accompanied by the residents of Siddhaloka and Vidyadhara Loka, all the descendants of Diti, and the demons and the yakshas. He was also accompanied by his chief associates headed by Sunanda and Nanda. Kapilo Narado Dato Yogesha Sanakadaya Tamal Anviyur Bhagavata Yecha Tat Sevanotsuka. Great devotees who were always engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as well as the great sages named Kapila, Narad, and Dattatreya, and masters of mystic powers headed by Sanak Kumar, all attended the great sacrifice with Lord Vishnu. Yatra Dharma Duga Bhumi Sarva Kama Duga Sati Dogdi Sma Bhipsitam Artan Yajamanasya Bharata. My dear Vidura, in that great sacrifice, the entire land came to be like the milk-producing Kamadhenu, and thus, by the performance of yajna, all daily necessities for life were supplied. In this verse, the word Dharma Duga is significant, for it indicates Kamadhenu. Kamadhenu is known as a Surabhi. Surabhi cows inhabit the spiritual world, and, as stated in Brahma Samhita, Lord Krishna is engaged in tending these cows. Surabhir Abhipalayantam. One can milk a Surabhi cow as often as one likes, and the cow will deliver as much milk as one requires. Milk, of course, is necessary for the production of so many milk productions, especially clarified butter, which is required for the performance of great sacrifices. Unless we are prepared to perform the prescribed sacrifices, our supply of the necessities of life will be checked. Bhagavad Gita confirms that Lord Brahma created human society along with yajna, the performance of sacrifice. Yajna means Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the sacrifice means working for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this age, however, it is very difficult to find qualified Brahmins who can perform sacrifices as prescribed in the Vedas. Therefore, it is recommended in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Yagyai Sankirtana Praya, that by performing Sankirtan Yajna and by satisfying the Yajna Purush, Lord Chaitanya, one can derive all the results derived by great sacrifices in the past. King Pṛthu and others derived all the necessities of life from the earthly planet by performing great sacrifices. Now, the Sankirtan movement has already been started by the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. People should take advantage of this great sacrifice and join in the society's activities. Then there will be no scarcity. If Sankirtan Yajna is performed, then there will be no difficulty, and not even in industrial enterprises. There will be no difficulty. Therefore, this system should be introduced in all species of life, social, political, industrial, commercial, etc. Then everything will run very peacefully and smoothly. Last two verses. Uhu sarvarasanadya shiradadhyana gorasan taravo bhuri varshmana prasuyanta madhuchuta. The flowing rivers supplied all kinds of tastes, sweet, pungent, sour, etc. And very big trees supplied fruit and honey in abundance. The cows, having eaten sufficient green grass, supplied profuse quantities of milk, curd, clarified butter, and similar other necessities. Purport: If rivers are not polluted and are allowed to flow in their own way, or sometimes allowed to flood in the land will become very fertile and able to produce all kinds of vegetables, trees, and plants. The word rasa means taste. Actually, all rasas are taste within the earth, and as soon as the seeds are sown in the ground, various trees sprout up to satisfy our different tastes. For instance, sugarcane provides its juices to satisfy our taste for sweetness, and oranges provide their juices to satisfy our taste for a mixture of the sour and the sweet. Similarly, there are pineapples and other fruits. At the same time, there are chilies to satisfy our taste for pungency. Although the earth's ground is the same, different tastes arise due to the different kinds of seeds. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7.10, Bija mam sarvabhutanam, I am the original seed of all existences. Therefore, all arrangements are made there. As stated in Upanishad, Purnam idam, it's from the introduction. Complete arrangements for the production of all the necessities of life are made by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. People should therefore learn how to satisfy the Yajna Purush, Lord Vishnu. Indeed, the living entity's prime business is to satisfy the Lord, because the living entity is part and parcel of the Lord. Thus, the whole system is so arranged that the living entity must do his duty. As he is constitutionally made. Without doing so, all living entities must suffer. This is the law of nature. The words Tarava Bhuri Varshmana indicate very luxuriantly grown, big-bodied trees. The purpose of these trees was to produce honey and varieties of fruit. In other words, the forest also has its purpose in supplying honey, fruits, and flowers. Unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, due to an absence of yajna, there are many big trees in the forest, but they do not supply sufficient fruits and honey. Thus, everything is dependent on the performance of yajna. The best way to perform yajna in this age is to spread the Sankirtan movement all over the world. Okay, this is the last verse. Sindavo ratnanikaran girayo nam chaturvidam upayanam upajahru sarviloka sapalaka. King Pṛthu was presented with various gifts from the general populace and predominating deities of all planets. The oceans and seas were full of valuable jewels and pearls, and the hills were full of chemicals and fertilizers. 4 kinds of edibles were produced profusely. Purport: As stated in Upanishad, the material creation is supplied with all the potencies for the production of all necessities required by the living entities, not only for human beings, but animals, reptiles, aquatics, and trees. The oceans and seas produce pearls, coral, and valuable jewels so that fortunate, law-abiding people can utilize them. Similarly, the hills are full of chemicals, so that when rivers flow down from them, the chemicals spread all over the fields to fertilize the 4 kinds of foodstuffs. Anyways, I read that wrong, but you got the point. These are technically known as charvya, those edibles which are chewed, and leha, those which are licked up, chusha, those which are swallowed, and peya, those which are drunk. Pṛthu Maharaj was greeted by the residents of the other planets and their presiding deities. They presented various gifts to the king and acknowledged him as the proper type of king by whose planning and activities everyone throughout the universe can be happy and prosperous. It is clearly indicated in this verse that the oceans and seas are meant for producing jewels. But in Kali Yuga, the oceans are mainly being utilized for fishing. Sudras and other poor men were allowed to fish, but the higher classes, like the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, could gather pearls, jewels, and coral. Although poor men would catch tons of fish, they would not be equal in value to one piece of coral or pearl. In this age, so many factories for the manufacture of fertilizers have been opened. But when the personality of Godhead is pleased by the performance of yajñas, the hills automatically produce fertilizing chemicals, which help produce edibles in the fields. Everything is dependent on the person's acceptance of the Vedic principles of sacrifice. All right. And so tomorrow, we'll read about how Indra steals the sacrificial horse and creates heretics. And then we'll learn about how Lord Brahma appears on the scene to dissuade Pṛthu and the priest. Sorry, I'm falling asleep all of a sudden. Lord Brahma appears on the scene to dissuade Pṛthu and the priest from killing Indra. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari, Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishta Vishnupar Ashtatara Shatashmar Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Shila Gurudev Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishta Vishnupar Ashtatara Shatashmar Shila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishta Vishnupar Ashtatara Shatashmar Shila Bhakti Vedanta Sai Maharaj Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishta Vishnupar Ashtatara Shatashmar Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishta Vishnupar Ashtatara Shatashmar Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishta Mahabhagavat Shila Bhakshidas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Nitila Pravishta Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai, Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Pata Das Raghunath Shar Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai, Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaur Mandala Bhaja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Ki Jai, Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Shri Pṛthu Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Bhumi Devi Ki Jai, and Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Vrindai Tulsi Devai, Priyai Keshavashaja, Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi, Sattvatai Namo Namaha, Vacha Kalpataru Vyashta Kripa Sindhu Vyayevacha, Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Alright. Did Pṛthu form the continents? I don't know about that. Haven't heard anything about that. Alright. I am gonna go now. Sorry, I've been so tired today. I have lots of reasons for that, but I'm not gonna say right now. Alright, Haribol. That's great that the internet worked today. Yesterday was really frustrating. Alright, see you all tomorrow.